Hello, my friend. In this video, we're discussing the importance of company core values that are actually lived if you want to have a high-performance culture. This is a clip from an interview we did with John Spence, who is one of the top 50 business thought leaders in America and the author of a great book on business excellence called Awesomely Simple. This is Business Leadership Today, and I'm your host, Matt Tenney.
I had a president of the company ask me once, when can I stop talking about the vision, values, and mission? I'm so sick of this. I just constantly talking about this. I said, when you get to the point that if you say it one more time, you're going to get sick to your stomach, the lowest person in your organization just heard it for the very first time. So this means face-to-face meetings, all hands, email, newsletter. A lot of the CEOs and senior executives I work with now put out a weekly video right off their cell phone. And, here's what we're doing. Stories talking about how people live the values, customer feedback on it, screensavers, literally, cards. It is impossible to over-communicate the values of an organization.
And so what would be a metric for knowing that you're successful with this communication? Like, I know there's stories about Zappos, right? Where you can walk into Zappos and you pick any employee and they can just recite the values right off the top of their head. I would imagine you'd chalk that up as a success for the most part. So what metric? Not everyone's probably going to be able to do that, but we should probably all aspire to do that, I would guess. Where do you kind of get a sense of where you're on track, where the communication is frequent enough and it's effective enough to know that, all right, people actually understand these values enough that they could live them and make decisions based on these values?
Very good question. This is hard to put metrics on it, but here's a couple of things I look at. Number one, yes, they know them off the top of their head, but number two, they can explain them in their own words. This is what it means to me. Number three, they can explain how it impacts them in their job. This is how I do my job. This is how I interact with my coworkers. This is how I interact with customers to stay in alignment. This is how the values drive my decisions. I've got a very favorite Walt Disney quote: when values are clear, decisions are easy. So how are you using the values to make decisions throughout the organization? Many of the organizations I work with start every major meeting off, with 8 or 10 people in the room, with naming the value of the month and having someone explain it or tell a story about someone in the organization that are living those values, that there's a lot of corporate lore around it. Then you can add it into customer satisfaction or employee satisfaction, employee engagement surveys. Here's the values, how well are you living them? Do they impact your work? So you can go all the way from very qualitative to actually put it in quantitative in surveys and asking people, how well do you actually believe we're living these right now as an organization?
And if you're getting feedback, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, that's not happening, I'm assuming that's a good sign that the values are just not being communicated often enough or effectively enough.
And they're not even getting enough. Well, here's a great thing. If someone is not living the values clearly, this should be a reason. Values should be for hiring and termination, hiring, training, and termination. Hire people that match your values, communicate and train them on the values constantly. And if someone is continuously violating the values, then if they are not removed from the organization, you're telling everybody else we were just kidding. So that's a couple of ways to make sure that people live the values.
All right. And now this is, as you're expressing here on your list, this is not just something we want team members to be doing, but as leaders, we need to be a living example of what we want to see in the culture. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, this is the single most important thing around culture. Once you've done it, is if the senior executives don't live it, nobody else will. And I'm a fanatic for phrases. As goes the leadership team, so goes the entire organization. And years ago, I was being interviewed and they asked me for my definition of leadership. And there's an awful lot of definitions of leadership, but one aspect of mine is you must be a living example of what you hope your followers will one day become. So living those values in word and deed is the example you set. And again, promoting people that do, dealing decisively with people that don't, is a clear way to show everyone we are very serious about these values in our organization.
Can you give an example of, maybe not give too many details so we don't call anybody out, but, where superficially it might seem like a leader is being an example of the culture, but not maybe 100%, and the
Sure,
effect that had on the organization?
Yeah, I could give you 100 small business examples, but I'll give you one from the Fortune 10. I was called to the round table of the C-suite of a $100 billion company, and they said, we have a problem. Our top salesperson is now on their third lawsuit for sexual harassment. However, he brings in, $100 million a year, whatever it was. What should we do, John? And I still remember looking up at the wall in the boardroom that had the values on a bronze plaque, right, and saying, value number 2 is respect. Either you take that off the wall, grind it down, and tell everybody we don't respect, or you terminate this person. And they said, what's your recommendation? I go, that's easy, terminate him. And they went, no way. And they fired me. Yeah. They terminated me. And it was just the clearest thing. As long as you make money for this company, you can do whatever you please. Well, we're happy to pay the lawsuits as long as it's, it keeps our profit margin high. And I've seen it on smaller scales, but that's a pretty big one.
Yeah. And so what do you see as the, obviously in the short term, that's really good, right? That's really good for their top line revenue. What about in the long term, John? Like, what do you
Some
see?
of those folks are in jail.
Well, what do you see about the long-term impacts on the success of that organization, the ability for that organization to deliver value to the customer?
Oh, it's very, very clear. They're going to lose all their best people who have integrity. There'll be an exodus for the door. Good people will get frustrated and they'll get upset and they'll get angry about the lack of integrity of the senior executives. So the very best people with integrity will leave. You'll end up with a group of people that are political, that don't believe in the values and treat their customers the same way. And this is sort of a reverse of another one of my favorite phrases. The customer's experience will never exceed the employee's experience. Well, if the employee's experience is backstabbing, lying, not living the values, not respecting other people, I very highly doubt they're going to walk out and treat their customers really well.
I doubt it too. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that you are you're going to advocate for the idea that that's just a terrible idea. I mean, that it might be, stop up a gap in terms of top line revenue for a year, a couple years, but it's going to come back to kill you, right? In a shorter matter of time than you might think, right?
After working with hundreds of companies around the world, probably closer to 1,000 or so, I have never seen a company that is in violation of its values that is sustainably successful. Might be a year, 2 or 3 or 4, but they're going to go off a cliff one day. And I've never seen an example of someone who violated the values and had a successful company. Never.
We hope you found this video valuable. And if you'd like to hear the entire 30-minute interview, please visit our website at businessleadershiptoday.com. The link is below in the description. Also, if you'd like to see more videos like this one, please be sure to subscribe and opt in for notifications. Until next time, I wish you great success building a world-class organization that makes a positive impact in our world.